Chapter 51. Tyler finally decided to buy stocks with dividends, not feeling bold enough to hedge just yet. He put his $100,000 into the S&P 500 and a handful of top technology companies with strong payouts. For someone who once slouched behind the sheriff's badge as the invisible son of Jericho, Tyler had noticeably changed. His t-shirts and worn sneakers had been replaced by crisp black and white business casual attire inspired by Wednesday Addams himself. His hair, though still short, had grown out just enough to give him a sharper, aristocratic edge. Now, when he walked through the halls of the Addams mansion, he looked less like a boy lost in the world and more like he belonged to a dynasty that thrived in shadows. Tyler was even looking forward to Wednesday returning home for spring break. But his blissful days shattered when a court mandate arrived. He was ordered to attend rehabilitation at Willow Hill. The very name stung. His father had once sent his mother there, where she later died. Tyler's blood boiled at the thought, and before he knew it, he stormed from the mansion, bolting into the Addams' sprawling hunting grounds. The hide in him roared like a beast rattling its cage. His fists clenched, his chest heaved, and he let out his rage by tearing through the grounds, slashing at branches, snarling at the wind, and driving animals scattering. A deer leapt across his path, and his eyes flickered with something feral. But when the fury drained, shame took its place. He returned to the mansion, clothes torn and fists bloodied, and stood before Morticia and Gomez. "I'm sorry," he muttered, his voice raw. "I shouldn't have lost control like that." Morticia, calm and composed as a midnight lake, tilted her head. "Lost control?" she mused. "Darling boy, that was barely a ripple. Why, when Wednesday was younger, she once chased a guest through these very halls with a carving knife. I had to remind her not to ruin the carpets." Tyler blinked. "You're not angry?" Gomez threw an arm around him, laughing heartily. "Angry? My boy, passion is the Addams family's greatest inheritance. You're merely learning to wear yours proudly instead of suppressing it like the rest of the dreary world. The only tragedy would be if you had bottled it all up." Morticia's dark eyes narrowed, but not unkindly. "Still, Tyler, rage without focus is like a knife without a handle. It cuts its wielder before its target. Learn to direct it, and it will serve you. Fail, and it will consume you, just as it consumed your father." The words landed heavy, but true. Something shifted in Tyler after that. The longer he stayed with the Addams family, the more he embraced their destructive tendencies, and the quieter the hide became. Or perhaps not quieter, but closer. The line between them blurred, their instincts merging. Take his exercise routine. When Tyler trained in the Addams gym, he began with ordinary punches against the bag. But then, without thinking, his hands reached for knives, his grip precise, his throws unnervingly accurate. Movements that once belonged to the hide now came naturally to him. He stared at the knife embedded deep in the target board, chest rising and falling. For the first time, he wondered. Was he controlling the hide? Or was the hide teaching him to become something new? Tyler unfolded the invitation to Willow Hill, his fingers lingering on the heavy paper as if it carried more weight than ink and parchment should. This was it, the place that held the truth about his mother, and the secrets that had haunted him ever since. His only regret was leaving without seeing Wednesday. He knew her too well. The moment she learned he had a mystery to unravel, she would abandon Nevermore without a second thought and follow him straight into the fire. And Tyler couldn't let that happen, not after everything she and her family had already done for him. The drive was long and heavy. His black 1965 Mustang purred through the winding roads, its polished chrome reflecting the gray sky. He passed Nevermore, slowing just enough to catch a fleeting glimpse of her from afar, her dark silhouette framed against the Gothic arches. A momentary ache gripped his chest, but he pressed on, refusing to stop. When he entered Jericho, his eyes fell on the sheriff's house, once immaculate, now boarded up and scarred with graffiti. The sight twisted in his gut. He didn't dare slow down, didn't dare risk catching his father's shadow in the window. Not today. Not when the past could derail the answers waiting for him. Willow Hill rose on the horizon, its iron gates looming like a warning. The security guard scanned him up and down before opening the gate with a clang that echoed in Tyler's bones. He drove forward, his reflection flashing across the black glass of the asylum's towering facade. Dr. Fairburn was waiting for him, flanked by her assistant, Judy. "Welcome, Mr. Galpin," she said smoothly, her sharp eyes studying him. Tyler stepped out in his black suit and trench coat, the outfit making him look more like a somber mourner than a patient. "How long will this evaluation take?" he asked, his voice edged with suspicion. "That," Dr. Fairburn replied, her smile razor-thin, "depends on when I determine whether you're truly fit to rejoin society." Tyler's lip curled. "I assume you've taken this opportunity to study a hide up close and personal." His words dripped with taunt, daring her to admit the truth. Judy stiffened. Dr. Fairburn only tilted her head, unflinching. When they led him to his quarters, Tyler stopped short. The room was not what he'd expected. Bars reinforced the window, heavy bolts locked the steel door, and the walls carried the clinical sterility of a high-security cell. "As long as you cooperate," Dr. Fairburn said, her heels clicking against the linoleum, "you'll find Willow Hill most comfortable." The lock slid shut behind him with a finality that sent a chill down his spine. Tyler's jaw tightened. Tyler had sat through enough therapy sessions to know the difference between real progress and empty conversation. Adele Addams, Wednesday's sharp-minded cousin, had been the best he'd ever had. Dr. Kimbott, his former therapist, had been the worst. So when he stepped into Dr. Fairburn's office at Willow Hill, his guard was already up. The first thing his eyes landed on was the book displayed proudly on her desk, The Outcast Condition, a Clinical Study. "You wrote this?" he asked flatly. Dr. Fairburn smiled faintly. "Yes. It's been cited in several journals." "Are you an outcast?" Her smile faltered for only a second. "No. But that doesn't matter for this evaluation." Tyler leaned back, unimpressed. "Hypocrite." Her eyes narrowed. "I beg your pardon?" "How can you sympathize with outcasts when you're not even one of us?" he shot back. The doctor folded her hands. "I understand your past relationships with normies may have left you mistrustful." "Mistrustful?" Tyler cut her off, his voice sharp. "My father abandoned me when he found out I was like my mother. And one of your own infiltrated an outcast school to resurrect a genocidal maniac who wanted to wipe us out. That's not mistrust, doctor. That's survival." For a moment, silence stretched across the room. Then, smoothly, she shifted gears. "I trust the Addams family has treated you well?" "They treat me as their own." "I'm doing much better now," Tyler said firmly. "I'm only here to evaluate whether you still carry lingering trauma. Adele and Uncle Greg already helped me unpack all that over the holidays." At this, Dr. Fairburn's brows lifted. "Gregory Addams? You've had one-on-one sessions with him?" Tyler smirked. "Best outcast doctor of the 20th century, right? He's also a hell of a psychologist. Adele's good too, licensed therapist, lawyer, terrifying debater. But since Uncle Greg lives in England, and Adele's juggling court cases, I'm stuck with you." Her polite nod didn't quite hide the flash in her eyes. The following days blurred into a pattern of pointed questions. Dr. Fairburn probed at him with surgical precision, but Tyler knew enough psychology, thanks to Adele, to spot her tricks. He stonewalled when she asked about Wednesday, dodging, diverting, giving her nothing she could twist. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. "How long have you known Wednesday?" she asked one afternoon. "Almost 3 years," Tyler answered carefully. "We've been together for 2, going on 3. Her next question made him stiffen. "And Miss Thornhill? How long have you known her?" Tyler frowned. "That's in the report. Corroborated by Wednesday's friends, Adele, and half of Nevermore." "Why are you asking again?" He explained anyway, how Thornhill had come between him and Wednesday, how she'd prevented him from joining the Addams family vacation, how she'd exploited his hide. "Miss Thornhill was my master. Not Wednesday. Don't twist it. For the first time, Dr. Fairbairn's mask cracked. Her voice dropped. Miss Thornhill insists she was not your master. She claims it was Wednesday Addams. Tyler laughed bitterly. You think I would have attacked Wednesday if she controlled me? Thornhill resurrected a genocidal maniac, and you're standing here trying to rewrite history? He pushed back his chair, eyes flashing. If you're trying to trick me, Doctor, you'll have to do better than that. And with that, Tyler walked out of her office, unshaken, unbroken, and grateful for every lesson Adele had drilled into him. Chapter 52. Months later. The metallic tang of bleach clung to the back of Tyler's throat as the asylum clock ticked louder than his own heartbeat. He sat perfectly still, his hands folded in his lap, the faint leather squeak of the chair betraying the tension in his body. Dr. Fairbairn watched him with quiet amazement. Weeks had passed at Willow Hill without a single violent outburst, not even a flicker of the hide. The boy who once drowned in rage now carried himself with the restraint of a man desperate for freedom. But freedom had its price. Tyler's search for the truth about his mother was stalled, cameras tracked his every step, guards lingered like shadows, and the heavy steel door to his cell clanged shut each night with a finality that rattled his bones. The still air tasted of dust and disinfectant, nothing like the crisp scent of Jericho's forests he craved. He told himself he could wait. He told himself Wednesday was worth the patience, even if she hadn't visited him once. Summer was coming. He could almost feel the warmth of sunlight on his skin again, hear the ocean hissing at the shore, picture Wednesday's cool fingers brushing over antique rings instead of the cheap trinkets he once gave her. He counted down the days, each morning dragging him closer to the moment he could prove to the Addams family, and to Wednesday, that he was more than capable of providing for her. And then the scent of aftershave and worn leather drifted into the evaluation room, carrying with it a presence Tyler thought he could avoid a little longer. His father had come. A few days ago, Donovan went to see Wednesday at Nevermore to know how his son was doing. Donovan Galpin had faced murder scenes without flinching, but sitting across from Wednesday Addams was another matter. Her stare was a scalpel, cutting past the sheriff's badge, the father's concern, the man's pride, straight into the marrow of his shame. You mean to tell me, Donovan began, his voice low but shaking, that you allowed my son to be locked inside Willow Hill? A place for lunatics? Wednesday didn't blink. It's not a matter of allowance. It was court-ordered. My family ensured it wouldn't be permanent. You should be grateful we have more influence than you do. The words landed like a slap. Donovan's jaw tightened. Grateful? He's my son. I should have been the one to protect him. You should have, Wednesday agreed flatly, but you didn't. You were gullible enough to believe Laurel Gates was a well-meaning teacher instead of a homicidal botanist. And worse, you believed she had Tyler's best interests at heart. Donovan's shoulders sagged under the weight of truth. I was ashamed, still am. I couldn't see through her lies. And I let my prejudice against your family blind me. Maybe if I hadn't dismissed you and your parents, maybe if I'd listened, his voice cracked. Maybe my boy wouldn't have turned into this. Wednesday tilted her head, her expression as still as a tombstone. Tyler was always a hide. Thornhill didn't create him. She simply pulled the lever. I spent months trying to prevent what I already knew was coming. Donovan blinked. You knew? A vision, Wednesday said, her tone dry as old parchment. I saw him chained, caged, dangerous. I tried to intervene. But your disdain for outcasts was louder than any warning I could give. Donovan's anger flared, burning through his guilt. Why didn't you tell me that? You made it very clear, Wednesday interrupted, her voice as calm as if she were discussing tea preferences, that you had no interest in hearing anything from me or my family. You weren't a father protecting his son. You were a sheriff protecting his bias. The silence that followed was suffocating. Donovan gripped the brim of his hat, his knuckles white. How is he, inside Willow Hill? He asked finally. Wednesday's lips barely moved. Alive. Stable. I've been keeping tabs. You haven't even visited him? Donovan shot back. Her eyes narrowed. I don't need to hover to know he breathes. Unlike you, I don't confuse presence with care. Donovan felt his face burn, humiliation mingling with fury. Without another word, he shoved back his chair, the scrape echoing harshly in the quiet room. If she wouldn't give him peace of mind, he'd find it himself. He would see Tyler with his own eyes, no matter how much it hurt. Tyler had grown bored with Dr. Fairbairn's methods. She had been trying so hard to get him to crack, insisting it was just part of her evaluation. Tyler knew better. The moment he saw his father on the other side of the glass panel, he recognized it as another one of their shameless attempts to break him. What do you want? Tyler asked angrily, though he showed no signs of transforming into a hide. Your girlfriend said you're being mentally evaluated, so I came to check up on you. I was surprised to find she hasn't visited yet, Donovan said. She doesn't need to. I'll be out in a few days, and I'm going on a trip with her family for the summer holidays, so don't expect a visit. Funny, you despise them so much, but Uncle Gomez is more of a father than you. Unlike you, Mr. and Mrs. Addams actually pay attention to me. I feel more at home with them than in that empty house of yours that reeks of alcohol, Tyler replied in a flat, factual tone, as though he had no relation to the man sitting across from him. Don't let your guard down. Be careful here. This place has just as many secrets as the Addams family, Donovan warned. Are you referring to how Mom died here? Tyler's voice sharpened with anger. Don't worry. I don't plan to be locked up in this shithole for very long. I don't want to extend my stay. Get out before I snap. Take care of yourself, Tyler, Donovan said as he stood and walked away. Dr. Fairbairn had watched the entire exchange from the monitor, astonished that Tyler hadn't once had an outburst, even when confronting his father. When she walked in after Donovan left, Tyler didn't give her a chance to speak. You're going to have to do a lot more than that if you want me to crack, Doctor. What's next? You'll bring Miss Thornhill in here. His glare was sharp as glass. You've already taken too much of my time. I am not extending my stay. His tone turned threatening as he rose to his feet and strode past her without looking back. Chapter 53. The iron doors of Willow Hill swung open with a groan, and Tyler Galpin stepped into the sunlight, not as the broken sheriff's son or the hide in chains, but as a man reborn. His semi-formal suit carried an echo of Addams-like elegance, sharp and deliberate, and with each stride down the sterile hallway he shed the weight of the asylum. For the first time in months, he wasn't a prisoner. He was free. Days of silence and waiting were behind him as he packed the last of his belongings, his release timed almost poetically with the end of Nevermore's spring semester. Sliding behind the wheel of his restored 1965 Mustang, the engine growled to life, a declaration of freedom louder than any applause. Tyler didn't hesitate. The first place he drove wasn't home, but straight toward the looming gates of Nevermore Academy. There, preparations were already underway. Lurch had stacked Wednesday Addams's luggage neatly atop the family hearse, its black frame glinting under the afternoon sun. Nearby, Xavier Thorne chatted to Wednesday about his plans for the summer, tossing in a casual promise to text her. She met his optimism with nothing but a silent glance. The buzz of idle conversation snapped when a sleek black Mustang rolled up to the gates. Students gasped, whispers swelling into a storm as Tyler Galpin, once the hide, once the cautionary tale, stepped back into their world. Enid froze, her jaw dropping. Wait. Wednesday, you didn't tell me anything. You didn't even say you were still with him, she blurted, wide-eyed. Xavier stiffened and turned sharply, his voice taut with disbelief. What is he doing here? But Wednesday was already moving, leaving him mid-sentence. Her boots clicked against stone as she walked straight to Tyler. She said evenly, I was planning to storm into Willow Hill myself. Tyler laughed, the sound rough and honest after months of silence. You mean that was your grim way of saying you were worried about me? Her stare didn't soften, but he caught the flicker behind it. He smirked. Good thing they let me out before you could make a scene. Didn't even give them the chance to strap on a shock collar. Tyler turned back to his car, but not before locking eyes with Xavier. For a long, tense moment, neither of them moved. Then Tyler's lips curled into a slow smirk, a look of triumph sharpened by months of silence, as if he knew exactly how much it stung. He opened the driver's door without breaking eye contact. Xavier's fists clenched at his sides, his breath caught between anger and disbelief. The Mustang's door shut with a solid thud. Tyler slid behind the wheel, the leather creaking under his weight, and with one last glance toward Xavier, he started the engine. The car roared to life, rolling past the stunned crowd with Wednesday sitting calm at his side. Behind them, the Addams family hearse followed like a shadow. Xavier stood rooted to the spot, the smirk still burning in his mind long after the black cars vanished from sight. A hush fell over the courtyard, until Ajax broke it with the question hanging in everyone's mind. So, are they, living together now? Xavier's eyes widened, realization flashing into something darker, pain, sharp and unguarded, before his face hardened. Bianca stepped closer, her voice careful. Are you okay? He shrugged her off with an irritated wave and stormed toward his chauffeur. The door of his car slammed shut with enough force to echo across the courtyard, leaving the whispers behind him to swell even louder. The Mustang purred smoothly beneath the canopy of summer trees, sunlight flickering across the hood in shifting patches of gold. Tyler stole a glance at Wednesday, who sat with her chin tilted toward the window, her dark eyes following the blur of the passing scenery. Anywhere you want to go this summer? He asked, his voice easy, testing. She finally turned her gaze toward him, one brow arched. Are you planning to tell me about the money you stole from those drug dealers in New York first? Tyler blinked, half choking on a laugh. Your parents told you over spring break? No, she said flatly. Uncle Fester did. He says you're a natural, though you worry too much about being caught. He shook his head, chuckling. Yeah, sounds like him. You could have asked how my first stay in a mental asylum was, you know. Wednesday leaned back in her seat, her tone as cool as the air from the vents. Consider this me asking, how was your 5-star retreat in Europe? Tyler gave her a sidelong grin. Let's just say, I won't be joining Uncle Fester on his next getaway. He drummed his fingers against the wheel. So, your plans for summer? I intend to refill my creative reservoirs before I begin the sequel to my novel, she replied, her voice steady. And I'll continue working to master my visions. Library research, Tyler guessed, or are you calling in family help this time? His eyes flicked down briefly to her hands resting neatly on the dashboard. I have Goody's grimoire, she said simply. He nodded, then smirked. All right, but is there any room in that perfectly scheduled death planning for? I don't know, date night? Maybe a Scooby-Doo style summer road trip, just us, solving mysteries? Her lips curved, barely, but enough. I have an entire box of unsolved murder files and serial killer case studies in my room. We can start there. Tyler's grin widened, the Mustang humming beneath them as the road opened up ahead. Now that's a summer vacation worth remembering. And the car carried them forward, two shadows against the bright, endless stretch of road. The Mustang rolled to a stop in front of the looming Addams estate, its iron gates yawning open like the jaws of some great beast. Wednesday slipped out without a word, her dark silhouette vanishing through the grand double doors. Tyler stayed behind. He leaned back in the driver's seat, pulled out his phone, and flipped open the glove compartment where a small black calling card waited. He dialed the number. Yeah, came a voice on the other end. What are you looking for? I need a 1960 Volkswagen camper van, Tyler said smoothly. Black, fully refurbished. Interior has to be classic, black and white, maybe grayscale. No modern junk. Think Addams family chic. The line crackled. Urgent? Tyler's mouth curved into a half smile. Let's just say my girlfriend deserves a proper summer road trip. I'm willing to pay extra to make it happen, whether that means express delivery, or something a little less legal. The man chuckled. I'll see what I can find, Mr. Galpin. Tyler ended the call, slid the card back into the glove box, and stepped out into the fading light. Lurch lumbered over and wordlessly took the keys, driving the Mustang off toward the garage. For a moment, Tyler stood there on the front steps, watching the estate cast its long shadow across the grounds. A flicker of pride rose in his chest, strange, unfamiliar, but steady. For once, he wasn't the sheriff's screw-up son or the hide in chains. He was a man who could give Wednesday Addams something worthy of her world. And that thought made him hold his head just a little higher. Chapter 54. The Addams dining room was less a place for meals and more a theater for chaos dressed in silverware. Candles dripped black wax down iron candelabras, the chandelier flickered like a dying star, and the family gathered with the same anticipation most mortals reserved for duels. Wednesday's eyes narrowed into knives across the table. Pugsley beamed proudly, holding up his hand as sparks of electricity snapped between his fingers. "I just woke up, and I can zap electricity like Uncle Fester," he said, grinning. "Excellent. Mi hijo." Gomez clapped his hands as if applauding an execution. Things scurried across the table, dutifully refilling crystal glasses as though pouring wine at a Last Supper. Tyler blinked, adjusting to the surreal rhythm of Addams' family dinners. Dinners are more interesting with Wednesday and Pugsley around. "You don't travel much, do you?" he asked, curiosity cutting through the odd comfort of it all. Morticia's lips curved into a knowing smile. "Only for the essential occasions, engagements, weddings, quinceañeras. Christmas, on rare years. Sometimes our relatives descend upon us for the summer," Gomez added, twirling his mustache with pride, "or we upon them. One must keep the bloodline strong." Tyler tilted his head. "Strange. What about our trip to Alaska? Or England for Leah and Judah's engagement?" "Alaska," Gomez said with a flourish, "is a family estate, our wilderness sanctuary. We all share it. But," his gaze flicked toward Wednesday, "our little criminal here has shown interest in solitude." Wednesday's voice fell like frost. "Miles of wilderness, endless snow, no neighbors for 100 miles. Paradise." Morticia leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "Darling, perhaps we should give the Alaskan house to Wednesday and Tyler, as a marital home." Tyler nearly choked on his drink. "Marital? Stop speaking nonsense, Mother," Wednesday cut in sharply. "But my dear, solitude is sweeter when shared," Morticia said silkily. "And Tyler, you do enjoy the estate, don't you?" Caught between Morticia's gaze and Wednesday's glare, Tyler nodded carefully. "It's breathtaking." Wednesday finally turned to him, her expression unblinking. "Save your enthusiasm until you've endured an Alaskan winter. Most men don't survive the first one." Tyler smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Can't be worse than Jericho's winters." Dinner had barely ended when Pugsley leaned forward, eyes bright with mischief, and dropped the kind of question that could curdle dessert. "So, Tyler, what did you do with the money you stole from the mafia?" Pugsley asked, as if discussing comic books instead of organized crime. The room stilled. Tyler set down his glass carefully. "I invested some of it," he said. "In the stock market." Wednesday's gaze sharpened, her tone cool and precise. "How much?" "Around 100,000. His voice held a careful edge, as though she might skewer him for bad math. "I assume my father taught you investment strategies," Wednesday said, her expression unreadable. Tyler nodded. "That, and a few books from your library." Later, in the drawing room, Tyler pulled up his portfolio on his computer. Charts and numbers flickered across the screen. Wednesday leaned in, her dark eyes tracing the graphs. "Your understanding of the market is rudimentary," she pronounced. "You don't yet grasp the pulse of economics." Tyler turned, half amused. "You're already playing the stock market?" Wednesday's lips curved ever so slightly. "Investing is no different from poker. Except it's high-stakes gambling dressed in suits and spreadsheets." Tyler blinked. "Poker? I asked Father to invest in snake leather, for me after I won thousands at the table. Several times." Her tone carried no pride, only fact, sharp and clinical. Gomez raised his whiskey glass, beaming at his daughter. A most deliciously calculated investment, my little mastermind. Snake leather profits climb higher with every quarter. Wednesday leaned closer to Tyler, her voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear. This way, I never have to ask them for pocket money. Tyler's lips tugged into a crooked smile as realization dawned. So that was how she could afford her daily quad runs to the weather vane, without a single coin from Gomez or Morticia. The corridor lights flickered as Tyler and Wednesday made their way back to their rooms, their footsteps echoing against the old stone walls. Tyler slowed, reaching into his pocket. I got you something, he said, holding out a slender black box. Wednesday arched a brow but accepted it. Inside, an obsidian bracelet gleamed, smooth and cold like night itself. She slipped it onto her wrist, the stone catching a shadowy glint. Black market jewelry. How very sentimental, she murmured, though her eyes lingered on it longer than she intended. Then her gaze flicked upward. And where is your necklace? Tyler froze mid-step. His jaw tightened, his eyes fixed on the floor. It's still in the old man's house. His voice was low, almost a growl. Don't worry. I'll break in and get it, after I drop you back at Nevermore in the fall. Wednesday studied him, silent and sharp. Tyler leaned closer, his breath brushing her lips. Until then, this will do. And he kissed her, slow, deliberate, as if daring the shadows themselves to interrupt. Chapter 55. The glow of Tyler's laptop lit the room like a confession booth. A black market dealer scrolled rusted relics across the screen, polished just enough to pass as classics. Tyler ignored them until his finger stilled on the shape he'd been hunting, a 1960s black Volkswagen camper van. Sleek. Funeral chic. Almost perfect. He grabbed his phone and dialed. It has to be the real thing, he said, voice low. Classic black, vintage interior. No modern junk. The dealer chuckled. Second-hand, then? I know a guy, private sales. Tyler smirked. Second-hand was code for stolen. Send me his number. When the call ended, silence pressed in. The van still glowed on his screen, but his mind drifted elsewhere. His dividend investments had barely coughed up crumbs this quarter, no steady stream of income, nothing close to independence. For a flicker of a moment, he considered pouring in more money. But hesitation won. Instead, he reached for the battered Economics 101 stacked beside him. The book was heavier than it looked. Like a reminder. He hadn't even finished high school. Thornhill's manipulations and court-ordered therapy had gutted senior year. No diploma. No normal path. Before Wednesday, and before the chaos, his plan had been simple: grind at the weather vane, save just enough, get into college, and finally leave Jericho choking in his rearview mirror. But fate, with its usual cruelty, had other plans. Now he lived under the Addams roof, bound by Morticia and Gomez's one condition: keep Wednesday as dreadful as possible. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like freeloading. Tyler shut the book, jaw tightening. He didn't want to just haunt Wednesday's life like some rescued hide. He wanted to give her everything, without her ever needing to glance at the price tag. And that meant becoming someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with an Addams, not someone who survived off their shadow. Wednesday finally emerged from her trance, the faint smell of candle wax clinging to her skin. Noon sunlight angled through her window. She wondered what Tyler was doing and, with quiet calculation, decided to find out. The hallway was still. She pushed his door open just enough to peer through the crack. Tyler sat hunched over a book, his brow furrowed in rare concentration. The title caught her eye: Economics 101. Her lips thinned. Economics? He was supposed to be finishing high school this semester, if life hadn't derailed him into institutions both psychiatric and judicial. A thought wormed into her mind: was he planning on getting a GED? The notion amused her. Schools were glorified holding pens, outdated, underfunded factories where mediocrity thrived under fluorescent lights. Social interactions masqueraded as education, and lesson plans never strayed from assembly line predictability. Grandmama's jars of powdered newt offered more practical lessons. She pushed the door open fully. The soft thud made Tyler glance up, caught between guilt and curiosity. Beside the economics text, his laptop screen glowed with a collage of camper vans. "Have you chosen one yet?" Wednesday asked as she crossed the room. Without waiting for permission, she perched neatly on his lap. Tyler's arms circled her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "What do you think?" He angled the laptop toward her. Wednesday's eyes skimmed the gallery, each cheery color more offensive than the last. Her skin prickled. "They look like clown hearses." Tyler smirked. "Good thing I found a private seller. Says he's got a warehouse full of vintage cars. Thought you might want to come. Might be right up your alley." His tone softened. "Besides, it'd be nice to have your opinion before I buy it." Wednesday studied him, unreadable. Decline, and let him wallow in misguided independence. Accept, and ensure he didn't saddle them with something grotesque. Finally, she nodded once. "Very well. I'd prefer to inspect the corpse before you bring it home." Tyler grinned, tightening his hold on her. "I'll take that as a yes." Later, Wednesday folded her hands neatly on top of his. "Are you planning on finishing school?" she asked, her voice calm but probing. Tyler leaned back. "I haven't decided yet. I thought about college, mostly as an escape hatch from Jericho." "An overrated hatch," Wednesday replied flatly. "A degree no longer guarantees survival. Roughly 40% of graduates end up underemployed, working jobs that don't even require a degree. And student debt sits at nearly $1.7 trillion. That's an average of $28,000 per graduate, an albatross they drag for 20 years. College isn't freedom. It's indentured servitude with cafeterias." Tyler frowned, her words cutting deeper than expected. "That's true. But I wasn't really looking for some 9-to-5 career. I was thinking more, open a cafe, hire someone to run it, let it pay for itself." Wednesday arched a brow. "A noble fantasy. But most small businesses fail within 5 years. Coffee shops, in particular, drown in competition. Survival requires novelty, or ruthlessness. Preferably both." Her tone was matter-of-fact, not cruel. Tyler still smirked faintly, though the idea already felt shakier in his mind. "What about you? Any investment ideas?" "No," she said curtly. "Money is a tool, not a goal. I prefer tools that make you bleed." That night, long after Wednesday left, Tyler sat hunched over his laptop. He scrolled past restaurants, laundromats, car washes, safe bets, but uninspiring. Then something caught his eye: collectibles. The numbers were staggering. The global collectibles market had surpassed $400 billion and was projected to hit nearly $700 billion within the decade. Trading cards topped the charts: baseball, Magic, The Gathering, Pokémon. One rare Pokémon card had sold for over $5 million. Tyler's eyes widened. A market thriving not on survival, but obsession. Scarcity. Status. The kind of world he understood all too well. He leaned closer to the glow of the screen, his pulse quickening. If Wednesday saw money as a tool, maybe this was the kind of weapon he could forge.